All right. I am back for this week's ramblings. Um, if you recall last week, I talked about a couple tickers, which I'm going to go over because honestly, they didn't perform well, but that doesn't mean they won't perform well in the future. Um, we did have a lot of tax harvesting last week because of, you know, the new year coming into play and all that stuff. So a lot of stuff actually sold off um, a decent amount going into the end of last week, and that kind of um, that didn't necessarily ruin the charts on these. They just made them more cheaper, so that means that the opportunity on the upside is actually even better. Um, but before we get into that, this weekend we had or yesterday, no, 2 days ago, or I guess it was technically yesterday. Trump went to Venezuela and took Maduro out of power and took him home to New York. But yeah, so that's hit the markets, and futures just opened just recently. Um I actually haven't looked at futures yet. And it looks like futures are flat basically. But if you go look at oil, I mean, there's not really a crazy move on oil either. So I guess the market's still kind of processing what is going to come out of this. I think geopolitically that, you know, the move for Venezuela, because Venezuela has for those that don't know, Venezuela has the highest like oil reserves in the world, the highest amount of like proven oil reserves. It's at like 300 and something billion barrels, and second to that is Saudi Arabia, which the United States has a very good partnership with across a lot of things. Actually, Trump's been very goody goody with Saudi Arabia, but I do think this. I do think that this like move, if Trump actually does have like control over the oil, it's not good for OPEC. I think that oil in itself, just basic supply and demand. I don't think this is bullish for oil necessarily because you're if you have a whole shit ton of reserves that are now available to you, that means you have a lot more supply than you did before. And the Venezuelan government was already like limiting production of oil. So if they unlimit that production, obviously you're going to have a lot more, right? But I also think that requires like more modern and up-to-date technology, because I believe I read somewhere, I don't know if it's true or not, but sounds like they don't really have the top quality equipment to extract the oil as good as you could, I guess. But yeah, enough about oil. I think last week I talked about, what were the tickers? I talked about HCWC being a good setup. This is still a good setup. I think I talked about it like here or something. It was on one of these days. And I basically said, there's a huge gap. There's a volume gap, like a volume profile gap. And that's still the case. And we're still at lows. Um, Obviously, it made new lows here. Just so happens to coincide with the last day of tax harvesting. So that kind of makes sense. I mean, it still does. It's still not really trading that much volume. I do expect this to move soon. There's gonna be some person is, or there's gonna be a PR. Something's gonna happen. This is gonna pop. I just know it is because it's too cheap for what it is. Because if you look at this, I mean, it's basically all green, 16 mil float at 28 cent, and this has been like the theme, right? So actually, this is a better way to look at the charts instead of on Thinkorswim, because I can do this and it just looks cleaner. But yeah, so I talked about that one, and then I still like it. And I talked about ADVB. ADVB, so they put out a PR, but they sold something for like 20 grand, and people were like, what the fuck? And then they sold it. Not surprising, honestly. I would have probably done the same thing. This is gonna run one day. I still think this is a good ad. Like, I think you can, if you're a penny trader, you can like add pennies and then just flip them for like 10, 20%, right? I mean, dude, look at this. This is at Lowe's. I don't know if I believe the float. I do think the float is pretty small. I don't know if it's a 3.8 mil float though. But the short interest this short interest was updated 11 days ago, so I guess we'll see in 3 days what the new one is. But I still think this is a good play. But a lot of this is like timing, right? So it's like you have to like guess essentially, and that's what I'm doing. I still think that one's a good swing. Oh yeah, none of this is real financial advice. All of this is my opinion. Everything else I say in this video is my opinion. Obviously, so don't expect me to be 100% correct on literally anything, because as you can see from last video to this video, I guess in the short term I'm wrong because the price went down on all three of these stocks actually: HCWC, ADVB, and what was the other one? AZTR. But again, I attribute that to a combination of like the market itself and the tax loss harvesting going into the end of the year, because like the whole week basically all these went down. But I mean, any of you guys that trade pennies know, I mean, look at the chart, dude. You guys know it's a 27-cent stock, it's a 10 mil float. They have histories of big pops on like PR, on like data PRs and shit like this. I mean, you can see look at all of them. Look at all these big volume day candles. Boom, 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 boom. And if you look at the chart at that time, like look at this one. It had been coming down, it's had some pops, coming down, just been sitting there, boom, pop. That looks exactly like this one looks right here. So it's like, when's the next boom pop, right? It's the new year. I actually think they filed something. They're holding a meeting on the 6th to approve issuance of more than 20% of the issued and outstanding shares pursuant to the SPA with Alumni Capital. So these guys are looking to sell their shares and their warrants. So maybe it gets a pop before then, or maybe they wait till after the shareholders approve that to do that, because they're going to dilute when they do that, because they're going to want to sell. But yeah, enough about the tickers from last week. There are some new tickers that I really like, that now that we're in the new year and I can swing things more because I don't have to worry about tax loss harvesting. I think these are like really good setups as well. I'll start with HWH. So why do I like HWH? Okay, so for those of you that don't know, so what put me on that, I wasn't even looking at HWH to begin with, actually, to be honest with you. You know what, let me go to this. But I had noticed AEI on my scanner. And for those of you that don't know, what's this guy's name? Chanhang Fei Ambrose, whatever, however you want to call his name. So, and you can see HWH is right here, HWH International, but I'm not even on I'm on the AEI ticker. So you're like, okay, well, what is the correlation here? So that CEO, this dude is a grifter. He is a known scammer, and he knows how to play the game, like in terms of scamming his stock, right? He's a known scammer, and he just knows what to do. And so last week, I see this candle right here. This one on AEI, and I'm like, why is this up from 250 to 350 in like 2 days on no volume, literally 180K volume? And in my head, I'm thinking, okay, I know this guy's a scammer. The CEO's a scammer. This kind of looks like it's about to break out of this huge daily flag, if you want to call it, because you see, boom, boom. It's starting to look like it's trying to, right? And then Friday, it didn't really do anything. It kind of, I mean, it was green, but it just kind of stayed there. But the volume is increasing on it. So you're probably thinking at this point, why? So why buy HWH? Well, AEI owns HWH, and HWH owns AEI. So the way that this guy scams is he pays himself in shares of each company. So like, look at this. He gave himself a convertible note for $200,000 in HWH. On October 6th, issued a convertible note to HWH for $200,000. Right? So AEI bought. He essentially he owns both companies. He essentially is paying himself in shares of HWH on AEI, and conversely, HWH owns AEI. Look here he is again. Convertible note around the same day for the same amount of money. So it's like, actually that might be the exact same one. Okay, so look, HWH name of issuer, Hang Fi, Ambrose Chan, All Set, right? So All Set owns 5.1 million shares of, or 70% of HWH, held by All Set Acquisition Sponsor. These two companies are basically shells, guys, right? So he's gonna scam something into them. The reason I liked HWH is because, one, the chart was way better, because like, look, it's like down here at relative bottom. This bottom right here is the same as this bottom right here from back in November, right? And from this level of 140s, we went all the way to 280. I think this was pumped like after hours one day, and then it just like continued a little bit. But with that being said, they didn't dilute. He doesn't dilute his stock really ever. The last time he diluted was in 2025 at the beginning of the year, and honestly, I don't even know if he used any of it. Where is that? S1 2025. I mean, maybe he did. Oh, okay. So they ran it. You can see what happened. They ran it, and then he did an offering. So maybe the same thing happens here. You know, it's at I mean, I guess this level right here is also this level right here, right before this huge day. Because look, these are the type of tickers I like. I like the tickers. I like the swing tickers that are at bottom with low floats that are at like a good price, but that they have a history of running big. Look how many times on this chart this thing has popped randomly, like over 100%. I mean, there's 1, 2, 3. Get that out of the way. There's at least 3 right there, and then if you scroll back further, obviously, I mean, it's had some runs there too, but you get the point, right? And if you look at it from this way, this looks like a huge like daily resistance coming up around here. So like, say they PR something, boom, it scams all the way to like $8. You know, that's a really big move. It's a 1.3 mil float, 6% short. But the reason I bought this one is because AEI was starting to get a move, because it looks like he's trying to do, it looks like something's going to happen on AEI, and I just know from trading these stocks that if AEI runs, HWH is going to run, because they're going to be like, oh my god, AEI owns HWH and HWH owns AEI. So what am I going to do? I'm going to get in before any of them decide that happens. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But if I'm right, I score big, right? And I'm just in before anyone else. So that's why I like HWH. And low floats have been starting to move along with the pennies. We've actually seen very good action. Or last week, I was, or the last 2 days before, or the last 2 real trading days, there's been a lot of like intraday action on pennies and stuff and low floats, and it's just been really nice. And if you recall from the last video, this kind of looks like PCLA, this NTCL. This is all I traded on Friday. I was watching it just because it was a similar setup, because I was like, okay, look, you have a long consolidation period, and then because this was like October all the way to the middle of December, right? At the dollar range. And then it drops on like small volume from $1 essentially all the way to 30 cents. I'm like, okay, well, eventually this has got to stop, right? No filings told me this anything, but so I just had it on my radar. I had it on my watch list. And so I got a notification because I had put notifications on it to see if it was moving. And I actually noticed this candle right here on 10K shares set off the scanner on it. And I was like, okay, maybe it's finally time for them to turn this to the upside. And then I just kept watching it. Someone was loading small, kept loading small, and it just kept creeping up. And I just know from experience that when they do this, where they pop on like small volume pretty high from where they open, so like 34 to 44 on like no volume, and they come down, but then they creep up all the way again. If this breaks, this is going to explode. And that's exactly what happened. And then you combine that with the fact that it was down on like no volume, right? It was down on no volume. So there's not really any resistance to push through, even though it was all the way down there. Because no one was there was barely any shares traded. Look at this. 15K shares, 4, 20, 30, 65K, 30K, 76K, 120K, 230K on that big red candle. So like less than 1 million shares, and it went from 60 cent to 30 cent. It's just you just know it's free money. So when I saw it creeping up, I slammed it like 41-ish, because I was like, okay, I think this is gonna do it. And it did, and it was like 5 minutes later, and it just immediately shot up to 60. I was like, wow. That was just in that one candle. And then it eventually pushed up to 64, and it actually held up quite well. So maybe it does what PCLA does and like stays up there and tries to do something. But yeah, these are the types of setups that I love. Anyways, with that being said, penny, and this was on no news, no filings, anything. So that's just running in normal, right? With that being said, I like DKI as well. Pretty much for the same reasons. This is just a random Hong Kong penny. It's a 6 mil float. I've been watching the tape. They're not diluting. It's pretty spready. And they've never done an offering since their IPO in August of this year. It's obviously they rug pulled it. They did the little IPO thing where the insiders have shares, and then their lockup expires, and then they dump. So that's what that was. But at this point, it's a 6 mil float down at 30 cent, and that's just the price range that has been getting hit recently. And the Hong Kong ones and the China ones that do that they usually squeeze. NTCL was Hong Kong, I believe. Or no, it was China. So yeah, so NTCL was a 7.6 mil China at lows, and it went from 35 to 64, so almost 100%. So that just tells you like the potential that it has. because this one's an even smaller float, and it's been down here for much longer, and it barely trades any volume. I mean, if it gets over like 50, it can just, there's a gap right here on the chart from 58, 57. There's a gap at 58, 57 basically. So 35 to 58, 57, what's that like? 10, 20, 30, 40, almost 50%, or no, 70%. So, I mean, I've been watching it. It's like, you can just tell, like, looking at the spread after hours, or I guess this is not technically after hours. This is Sunday, but I mean, like, look at this candle right here, 12,000 shares. The range on the candle for 12,000 shares is 34 to 39. So that tells you that if it gets any volume at all, it's just going to squeeze, right? I mean, look, this went from 30 to 42 on 300K volume. And if you know anything about pennies, that's like nothing at all. Dollar wise, we're talking less than 100 grand collectively across everyone in the market trading it. And then the next day it did the exact look. So it did that on 300K shares, 31 to 41. The next day comes all the way back down on no shares, mind you. I mean, like, look, it just, yeah, they dumped it a little at close on that day, but then look, it came down more in after hours and pre-market on like what, 40K shares, all the way back down to 31 again, and then it just runs all the way back up to 42 again on no shares. And no one's been talking about this. So that just, these are the ones that, just from my experience, these are the ones that run the best, the ones that no one's talking about, that have been down for so long, especially when penny theme is like active, because they rotate between all of them. You guys know this. They run after them one after one. So I think this is a good one. And then another one, Lynx. So Moon had mentioned Moon Market, for those of you who don't know. Moon had mentioned Lynx as a swing the other day. And I have to agree with him. I think it's a really good swing because they went, I think he talked about this already, but they went into this material definitive agreement for an acquisition, I believe it was. It's customer portfolio. Share purchase agreement for the purchase of 20% of the outstanding shares. Anyways, it's they acquired shares of this company, right? So they're and it made them pop. 50 million volume. I would have to go back. What day is this? October 17th. I think it actually went way more than that. Yeah, it did. Yeah, so look, from what time do they PR this? Oh, they PR'd it at 9 a.m. Okay. Yeah, so it, where's it at? So they PR'd it at 9 a.m. They ran it all day basically, and then after hours it went all the way to 121. But this is a good swing because, I mean, look, so you see the potential of it, right? They didn't do an offering or anything. It went to 121, right? Now it's down all, so there could have been note holders or someone that had like shares that they sold. Whoop-de-fucking-do, who cares? Because look how long it's been since all this volume has happened. That was October 17th of last year. Look how it's just been slow grinding down. And then I think here is where Moon alerted it as a swing. Um, so you see how easy it moves still, and then that's with no news. Freaking 33 to 52, 53. It's slowly grinded down again. Now we're basically back at floor because people that were flipping it are out. Blah blah blah. Moon's probably still swinging it, but um, if you just look at this intraday, you can see the spread intraday is anywhere from like 2 to 3 cent, which tells me that with any good volume, it's going to run very quickly, right? And whether that be from APR or just someone rigging it, it's just a really good setup, and I have to agree with Moon on that. It looks like one of those that's just like it just explodes one day, right? And who's to say when that day is going to happen? But you don't even have to wait for the big explosions. You could just be buying 30s, low 30s, and then selling in 40s. I mean, look how many times it bounces up. Bases bounces, bases bounces, bases bounces, bases bounces, bases huge bounce. And you just keep the most recent lows as your floor. And it's like, okay, you're risking what, 10, 20%, but it's like you have potential upside of like crazy numbers. So it's like, you're just playing you're playing a game of odds, right? And it's low float. It is a penny, and it fits the theme that's been pennies in this price range that have been the ones squeezing. It doesn't really have a dilution history, and there's no dilution filings that we know of. So it's like, it's a really good idea. But yeah, so let's see. I think that's all. Oh, there's another one. EEIQ. This one's also like PCLA. It's just like, I mean, just look at the drop. There's too many lines on this chart. Let me go to this one. So look again, 10 mil float, 20-cent penny. This one does have a prospectus in effect, but I don't really think they're using it, to be honest with you, because I've been watching the tape. But that's just something that you need to be aware of. So obviously there's a gap here, 42, 43. Is look, gap down, never filled that gap back up, right? So 42, 43 is like, if this gets volume, that would be my target, right? But look, for 3 months it based in the 40 area, right? And then you see the volume. This volume relatively decently high, right? But that was when it was going down, or that was when it was basing and it had a PR, and then it gaps down one day, and then since then the volume's been really small. Like look, 48k shares, and this is, mind you, this is at this time it's like 35 cent. So 10,000 shares, $3,500, 40k shares, less than 15 grand a day traded, right? So it's like no volume, and it's been that way all the way until Friday, because I think Paul alerted it. But it's a good idea because it's been grinding down on no volume at this price. The intraday spread it's like really, again, you can tell from after hours. I mean, look at the amount of, so it's like a 2 to 3 cent spread. Assume this wall was gone, it's just 26.5 by 28.3 on a 10 mil float at 28 or 26 cents. It's basically a 10% spread. The most money on pennies is made on the ones that they trade thin intraday and have a decently high spread, because what you can do is you can buy the dumps, right? And then it takes no shares to go back up 10%, 15%. And if it goes back up 10, 15% and then it starts to catch, maybe it goes up 30% and there's barely any volume traded, and you just You just keep flipping over and over again. If you get good at that, you can make a lot of money. And then sometimes you get lucky and they go crazy, like NTCL. Like I didn't expect NTCL to do this on Friday, right? I didn't, because when I bought it at 40, I didn't expect it to go straight to 60. Because like what? That's a 32% move basically. And mind you, this was like a, let me look at the 1 minute. Yeah, see, look how fast this happened. So I buy right here in this area, right? I'm like one of these buys. I don't even remember. I might have been this buy. I can't remember. But look, this is a minute chart. 41.5 to 45 to 50 to 60. Even if you didn't get any sells off there, next candle 58, 58 again, and then it did eventually go to 64. But it's like, dude, that's all you need in a day. If you buy, like, you can literally just make 2-3 grand off of stuff like this, and then just call it a day, and you don't have to do anything. And you know, that's it. That's if you just want to be non-aggressive with like trading, and it's just like, okay, make what you want and get out. 'Cause that's kind of like how I am. I'm just like, you know, give me 2 or 3 grand, 2, 3, 4, 5 grand a day, and then I'm just gonna dip because I don't really care. Okay, especially on these pennies, because I'm mainly a news trader. So like, when the news is hot, that's where I make the most of my money. But like when I'm flipping pennies, it's like, just take your base hits, and then sometimes your base hits get lucky because it's like a spready stock like this one, and that's why I kind of look for these setups. I like look for the ones that have the potential to do that. That's why I think HWH has that potential. DKI, LNKS, HCWC, AZTR. What was the other one? ADVB, EEIQ. Like I think the thing is, because out of all the tickers you look at, so like the way I look at tickers, I go to Finviz Screener, right? And I'll go to any under $5. I'm going to change the price to this, and then I just go down the list because I like this one. I like I said in the first video, I don't give a fuck about any of the numbers and shit. It's all wrong aside from the price, sector, industry, country. Market cap is sometimes relatively accurate. The float's not accurate. The market cap's not going to be accurate, or the outstanding's not going to be accurate, and the ticker rights. But like the reason I like this is because I can do this. I like the chart preview because what I don't want to do is fucking go, oh, VivK, let me go to here and then type it in and then look at the chart. No, I just want to, let me just scroll down like this and I can see what looks good to me. I mean, look how fast I can go. Because if something's in the fucking sky, I'm not gonna buy it while it's fucking flying. That's why I'm not buying AEI, even though I think they're running it up. Because it's like, okay, well this just went from 240 to 350. I'm not fucking buying it up here. Like, what is my risk reward there? I like to be at the bottom, right? So I like to be at the bottom, and then like on pennies that I'm swinging. That way I have the least amount of risk possible, right? But yeah, this is how I find my pennies and stuff. It's like, you know, there's a lot more to it than this. It's not just, oh, let me go look at Finviz Screener and see which penny looks cool. It's like, okay, well, does it have a history of trading well? Does it have a history of big pops? If I look at it intraday, I got to see how it trades intraday, right? Because it's like, okay, something can look good, and then I look at it intraday, and the tape is just dumps all day, and there's not really, the spread's not really that crazy. There's just dumps. There's huge short walls that pop up. There's like weird action going on. It's like you have to take all this into account. It's not like, this isn't like a crystal cut thing where it's like black and white. It's like, oh yeah, this one's good and this one isn't. This one's good and this one isn't. Just based off the chart. It does get to that when you factor everything into it. Okay, it's like, oh, okay, it's got a history of good runs. They PR often. It's at a low, on low volume. It hasn't really traded a lot of volume recently. It's a low float. The spread's pretty good intraday. There's not, the tape is just not dilution dumps all the fucking time. No, someone's not pumping it. Because I'll tell you one thing. There, if people are pumping something already, there's no point of you buying. Like if you're gonna swing it, right? If you're gonna swing something and someone's already been pumping it on Twitter for like 3 days straight, there's no point of, especially if they have pool, there's no point of buying the swing 3 days late if someone's pumping it for 3 days, because all that the people, if they have pool, they've brought in liquidity. If it does nothing, they're all gonna dump, because that's just, people get bored. It's like, it's shiny object syndrome. I have shiny object syndrome. I trade something, it's my shiny object. Once I'm done with the trade, I drop it and I don't look at it again for a while, and I go to the next shiny object. And that's why I have all these stickers that I like, because I'm constantly looking for the next best thing, right? But yeah, anyways, hopefully news picks back up, because I'm, like I've said multiple times, I'm mainly a news trader, and that's where I make the majority of my money. And I just think that companies have been holding news for the new year because, I don't know, market conditions, a lot of things are really overpriced still. This is kind of copium, but it's like, if you guys have noticed, there hasn't really been, and I don't even remember if I talked about this last video, but it's like, there hasn't really been a lot of like what I would call crazy PRs, that set off something. Because you remember SBET, it's like in the summer, I think it was May or something, or June, SBET did that one PR, and then it just exploded, went crazy. It set a spark off with all pennies. And then the best thing about it was the PR that SBET did with the digital, it was the digital treasury shit. Because it was something like that, it was something that every other small cap company could copy. And I've told this to the Discord. I'm just like, we need something, and I don't know what it is. And I've yet to see, well, there is one thing I'll talk about, but I've yet to see something that could be duplicated like that. Because all these digital asset treasuries, they don't, there might be like one or two companies that do something with that, like SBET and BMNR, and like where they're actually buying crypto and shit. But a lot of these companies, they're like, when they say digital asset treasury, or they're gonna allocate up to blah 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 millions for digital asset treasury, that's them saying, yeah, we're gonna dilute all this, and we're gonna buy up to this amount. Up to this amount, I could buy freaking 0.1 of a Bitcoin out of the $50 million I raised, and be like, yeah, well, I did buy Bitcoin. I said I was going to buy up to. I didn't tell you how much I was going to buy. So it's all just a dilution vehicle. So basically, because all these companies need money, because that's why they're listed. They're listed for public support, so they can fundraise money essentially. So it's like, small caps needs like some companies to come up with something that sparks a huge run on one of the tickers that is easily duplicated by any ticker in any sector, and it needs to be tied to dilution, because that's what's going to prompt these companies to do it, because they're like, oh, this is free money, let me do this. I don't remember which ticker it was, but one of the tickers recently did something with like prediction markets, like Kalshi and Polymarket. Just like how they did the digital asset treasury thing to provide value. I think that a lot of these companies could be like secure. They can get a PR or something, secures up to 200 mil financing for new prediction markets, blah blah blah. Because it doesn't matter what sector you're in or whatever, all these companies could do it. And they could even say secures up to 200 mil, 400 mil, 500 mil financing for prediction markets backed by digital asset treasury, something like that. They just need to change it up some way to where like it's easily duplicated. because these companies, guys, small caps are just the teenage version of OTCs. And I love the OTC more than any other exchange. But the OTC, for anyone that's traded OTC, you know it's just a bunch of scammers. The CEOs are dog water. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't know how to PR. They don't know how to run a company. They're like used car salesmen to the max, right? Okay. Small caps is just the teenage version of that. Like, okay, maybe the CEO knows a little bit more. They have a little bit more money to work with, therefore they were able to get listed because they could file everything that was necessary because they could afford it, blah blah blah. But at the end of the day, all these things are fucking scams. They're all scams. And the quicker you realize that, the quicker trading this shit becomes just so much easier. But yeah. I don't know why I'm thinking about this, but PMAX is supposed to drop at 13D for like a controlling interest of the company, and it's like a 1 mil float. And this is really random. I don't know why I just thought of this, but they're supposed to drop like a controlling interest 13D, like a change of control. So it's gonna be like 90% or something, I guess. And this is a 900K float, so I mean it's at a decent spot here. I'd prefer if it was down at like 160s to add it, but I mean if I see the 13D, I'm gonna slap it. But yeah. Anyways, I'm rambling at this point. Hopefully we have a good week, and hopefully pennies are hot this week, and hopefully news is hot this week. But yeah, we'll see how the Venezuelan shit affects the market. And now that tax harvesting is over, hopefully people become more risk on, because I think that the market's kind of been slow in that regard, because I think there's not a lot of FOMO in the market. If you sit down at the end of the day in small caps and you really think about it, I don't think there's really a lot of FOMO right now. The volumes is not the same as it was, but I also think that's because we've been in a downtrend for 2-3 months, a slower period for 2 or 3 months. So it's like, it's all a cycle, and everything's gonna come back to the way it was eventually. But it's like, to go up, I always tell people in Discord, to go up, you got to go down. Well, we're in the down part. So you just gotta choose your battles, make money carefully while you're going down, so that when you're going back up, you have all your money available to you and you haven't lost anything, you haven't lost any profits. But yeah. If you have any questions about anything, you can always just at me on Twitter or join the Discord. But yeah, you guys enjoy your Sunday night, and hopefully we got a lot of runners tomorrow. Peace.